But my son needs to watch Bluey, by user Carl Duelendout. Last night when I went to sign in to open Netflix, I found that my TV had been signed out. Went to sign back in and could not do it. It had been about a year since I last signed in, so I assumed I just forgot my password and requested to reset it. When I went to my email, I saw an email from Netflix this morning saying my password had been successfully changed. Obviously red flag, so I went through all of our subscription services and updated passwords and changed my email password just in case. Got a call from my brother's ex-wife, LWTS call her Kate, about an hour ago. They have been divorced over 4 years now, asking me why I changed my password. I didn't realize that she still had my account info, was a bit annoyed, and told her that someone had changed the password on me, and that I didn't feel comfortable giving out my account info, especially not to someone I was not in contact with. Jumping back a bit, my in-laws are staying at our home, and at night after everyone goes to bed, I guess we have 4 devices in our home running our Betflix account simultaneously. When she called, Kate explained how she tried to get onto our account on Christmas night, and was greeted with the message that there were too many users on our account currently so she could not access it. She got the idea that it would be totally fine with me if she logged into our Netflix account and changed the password so that her and her new husband could watch their show. Said this calmly like it was the most reasonable thing in the world. I nearly lost it. I have no idea how anyone would think it would be okay to change someone else's password because you are too cheap to pay for it yourself. I told her I don't want to hear from her anymore, I am not giving her our info, and hung up. 15 minutes ago, she called my wife, and asked for the Disney End password. I was lazy and had the same account info for each streaming service, and apparently she figured this out and was logged into several of our services. When I realized who my wife was talking to, and what about, I motioned for the phone. Kate was just whining that she at least needed to have access to Disney End so her son, who is 18 months old, could watch Bluey, and that he just needed it to be able to get ready for bed. I told her to fuck off, and hung up. Great way to ruin my mood for the night. My absent father just showed up unannounced, by user Bobasmove. I'm writing this on mobile while my wife is having surgery. TLDR, estranged sperm donor finds my address through shady means and shows up unannounced at 8 p.m. Monday night. So last night, my 30M wife, 29F, and I were winding down fairly early, as she had surgery scheduled early in the morning. At a little before 8 p.m. there's a ring on my doorbell. This, of course, sends my 2 dogs into a barking fit. I should have checked the doorbell cam. Or at least the peephole. But wrangling the pups came first. Anyways, I cracked the door a bit, and even in the dim light from the crack in the door, I immediately knew it was him. Before I can speak, he announces that he's my dad and wants to come in. Sounding very pleased with himself for surprising me. Mind you, he was absent until I turned 23, when he sent me a paternity test as a birthday gift. When it came back that he was, in fact, my father, his last words to me were, "That answers a lot of questions." He was abusive towards my mom, which is why she left while he was at work when she found out she was pregnant with me. So, being completely bushwhacked by this, I gather enough of myself to ask how the hell he found me. Apparently, he found my wife's name and did a tax record search of the area to find our address. Her name is on the loan, as my credit was garbage when we purchased. This just yeeted me into orbit with rage, and I told him this was not a good time and to leave and shut the door. I've been processing, and I feel that I should meet with him and tell him in person that what he did was so far out of line, and that if he really wanted to speak with me for any reason there are proper channels. Something else to note is that he's apparently reached out to her via Facebook Messenger and gave her his number after a very creepy introduction. My mother threw the biggest fit when I wouldn't name my child what she wanted me to, by user chuckles_headster. Hi Reddit. Got another story about my mom to share. This one happened about 14 years ago now. I, then a 21M, and my wife, then 22F, were happy to announce that we were expecting our first child. We had been trying for a while, and had been told by the wife's doctor that she had some complications that would make it very difficult for her to conceive. I don't remember what the issue was, but it wasn't impossible, just difficult. We had basically given up on trying, we were just enjoying our lives together and having the back burner hope that it might happen one day. And it did. We were both overjoyed and terrified. Nothing is as real as finding out you are expecting child number 1, and it can be a lot to take in at once. Everyone is excited, congrats all around, my parents' first grandchild, etc. My dad was probably the most wholesome I had ever seen or heard him be when we told him the news. My mom was over the moon, too. At first. After the first couple of months, we started really trying to hunt down names. We had already considered and rejected the idea of naming our son after really any family member, we just weren't interested in that. We both subscribes to the idea that the sound of a name is important. Your name is the very first impression people will have of you. Before even looking in your eyes, they can already have an opinion of you, and we wanted it to be a good one. I won't give details of what name we chose or what names we rejected. I'm not trying to bash on anyone's name, and I think, now, that actions are much more important than how a name sounds. When we told the families what we had decided to name him, one person took umbrage with our choice. Of course, my mom. According to my mother, at least one person in each generation needs to have the name. It's the family name, she practically wailed at me when I wouldn't budge. It's the same name I gave you. For the record, I do not like my first name, and I am never called by it. I am mostly called by nicknames or my last name, never my first. I don't hate it, I just don't feel like it suits me or my personality. It is not a silly or archaic name, just not for me. It turned into quite a thing. I can't really remember all that she said, but suffice to say, we were the biggest traitors to the family and we were tearing down tradition. She blamed my wife, saying that she had brainwashed me into it and all that. I was the one who came up with the name we wound up going with for him. Well, I talked to my grandma, and she said that the name wasn't really the name, it was her husband's name, and she named one of her sons the same. My mom named me with it, and decided it was tradition. We had several months of no contact after that, because, frankly, we didn't want to deal with her BS. More stories to follow later, ciao for now. Stepmother keeps a huge pic of my ex in the living room, by userless_then_fox. Backstory, I was previously married to a man. I came out as lesbian 2 years in. Things ended as mutually as possible, but we don't talk. Divorced for 5 years now. My stepmother apparently never got over it. She keeps a huge, framed picture of us dressed up in the living room. I've asked her to take it down many times. In a heated argument it got knocked off the wall and broke. She charged me for the repair even though she hid it while trying to point at it. Fast forward, well, I had a wonderful girlfriend about 2 years ago. She was intelligent, funny, and quirky cute. She begged me for months to meet my parents. We'd been dating for a little over a year and met all my friends and chosen family but wanted to meet the parents. I explained my past with my stepmother and her tendencies. She understood and stopped asking. Well, long story short, for another post, my stepmother showed up one day, I live 150 miles away, and invited us, in person for dinner. I felt obligated to go. When my GF and I arrived, night went as normal as possible but then GF brought up the picture of my ex and it's a good picture. Where was that it? Enter stepmother. She rambled on about how happy we were together and how she, me, was so much more fit back then. And it's a shame things didn't work out for him. It was unbearable. I interpreted and said it's late, we have to go. GF and I gathered our things. Oh, she always gets so upset about it. It's a part of your past, you need to accept that. Step said as we were packing up. And I'm a different person now. You live in the past. You have to accept that. Not my best line but I was upset. GF and I broke up for her to study in another state. And every girl I date now, I'm scared to bring over. It's such an awkward, unbearable, and embarrassing thing to do to your stepdaughter. My dad won't help either. He never gets involved with the topic of removing it. I hate that I can't convince her. And I hate that she rubs it in my face. I wish that picture would just disappear. Estranged father and his fourth wife told my fiancé she should be grateful for the chance to reconnect with her abusive mother, by user John Heflamer. My fiancé grew up in a very abusive household. Her mother was emotionally, physically, and verbally abusive to her. Key example, she snuck laxatives into my fiancé's food as a child whenever she felt that her daughter was getting too pudgy. She also forced my fiancé to stay inside the house for an entire year as a child with no outside social connection. We are visiting my family for the holidays out of state. I am not close with my father, as he basically walked out when I was 10. However, I have tried to reconnect and be civil over the years, so I see him once a year or so around the holidays. We agreed to have dinner with him and his fourth wife, who he married well into my adulthood, on Christmas Eve. Big mistake. My father's wife started asking my fiancé about her family, to which my fiancé said that she is not close with them, and other than one dinner we had with them a few months ago, it was by nature of a complex situation, not a desire to see them. She hasn't seen her parents in 4 to 5 years. I have previously told my father and his wife, on more than one occasion, that her parents were abusive and she does not see them. His wife doubles down, saying how it must have been nice to reconnect and that it's nice that I got to meet them. My father made a couple similar comments, as well as calling my fiancé his daughter-to-be and referring to her as the daughter his fourth wife never had. My fiancé excused herself and went to the bathroom to cry. My father's wife then tells me it's really nice you got to meet her parents. I told them not really. They abused the woman who is going to be my wife and caused her immense pain. I could have gone a lifetime without meeting them, but I will always be there to support her. This is a very sensitive subject and we would prefer not to talk about it. My father then chimes in with, well, I'm sure we'll meet them at the wedding. No, you won't, father. Not only because her parents are not invited to the wedding, but because you've demonstrated a complete lack of respect for our boundaries, have been oblivious to the pain your wife is causing my wife-to-be, and are actively causing my fiancé emotional pain. Your wife is now uninvited and you very likely are as well.